This is an ADC warning. The crimes you're about to see are true. Only the names were changed to protect the ignorant. Tonight on America's Dumbest Criminals, you'll see a break-in at the wrong house, a panty plucker who has to pay the piper, and a dumb criminal who almost got away. These are just a few of America's Dumbest Criminals.
Welcome to America's Dumbest Criminals. I'm Daniel Butler. If you find yourself tempted to commit one of the crimes portrayed on this show, you may be stupid and eligible for our Witless Protection Plan. But right now, you're about to meet the elite of the criminally inept as we open the files on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Our first case comes from St. Louis, Missouri, a case we call a red-hot robbery. Two men entered a convenience store, demanded cash, but they had no weapons. The crime wasn't working out like the ones on TV, so they were ready to call it a day, but not before one of the dummies stole a hot dog and crammed it into his mouth. Now he's choking on the weenie he just stole. The clerk calls 911 as the robber is completely obstructed by the purloined pork product. Would he receive death by hot dog for a foiled hot stop robbery?
There he is, right there. That's the jerk.
It was up to the police to save the robber's life. Will they get the weenie out? Will he return the last of the stolen merchandise? Yes, we have the weenie back. Let's see that one more time. Yes, there it is. The weenie has been returned. The man was arrested, later convicted, and put on pork probation and given a heavy Frankfurter fine.
It's enough to put a lump in your throat, isn't it?
It is against the law to possess a machine gun. It is also against the law to dress like a clown and possess a really big shotgun. A good safecracker is considered to be a specialist. It requires a surgeon's hands, a gambler's touch, and the finesse of a puppeteer.
I went on a call, and it was a burglary, and it was a burglary of a business. And these people had a safe. The burglars came in, and they used jacks and sledgehammers and drilled in that safe and done all kinds of things to it. I mean, just completely destroyed it. Never did get into it. So I came in to take the report as a police officer.
Well, this thing's been around for 20 years. They used some sort of sledgehammer on it.
They said, what makes us mad is they went and destroyed this safe and says, the only thing we have it here as far as looks. He said, it's not even locked. And all he had to do was turn the handles and opened it up.
ADC quiz number 143. As of 1994, which of the following four states had the largest prison population? Was it A, Florida, B, Texas, C, New York, or D, California? The correct answer is D, California. Probably because of their great prison entertainment programs. When a burglar entered the home of two elderly sisters through an unlocked window, he thought he was in for some easy pickings. He thought wrong. This lady grabbed her cane and just wailed on him.
He came in that window over there. See, he unlatched it and raised it. And I asked my sister, I said, now, are the windows all closed? She said, yes. And I said, I'm going to take this stick and I'm not going to stop till I beat you to death or either you go. And it wasn't long before he hollered out, please stop, you're going to hit my penis, please stop. And I kept on wailing him right in the same spot, I know, at least 3 times.
Is this a swell country or what?
Coming up on America's Dumbest Criminals, an undercover officer gets assistance from an unusual source. Our next dumb criminal made the mistake of blinking, drinking, and driving.
I was working midnight shift one night, and it was like 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning, that boring time when you're trying to stay awake, and I'm driving down one of our main drags, and there's no other car on the road except me, and this other car that's coming at me, and his emergency flashers are flashing. So I didn't have anything else to do, and it is against the law to ride with your flashers on. So I turned around, and I was going to make sure the guy didn't need anything. And I pulled him over, and I walk up to his car, and I said, "Is everything okay?" He says, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Well, your emergency flashers are on."
Well, the reason why I stopped you, your flashers are on.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's because I'm really, really drunk. And I didn't want anybody to hit my car.
So I promptly arrested him for drunk driving as he stumbled out of his car.
The man was arrested for driving under the influence, but not for flashing. And now, actual surveillance cam footage of a neighborly crack dealer.
We had received a lot of complaints from this area of town concerning street-level drug dealers basically taking over the neighborhood. So what we did is we went to this area and did what we call a drug sweep, where we go into the neighborhood, we try to arrest as many drug dealers as we can, and those that we can't arrest, we run them off of that street corner.
This is actual surveillance cam footage of an undercover officer. He's the one in the white shirt and blue jeans. He's been trying for several hours to sell drugs and couldn't get one car to stop. Then he was approached by the helpful citizen in the white shorts who wanted to teach the officer how to sell crack. To demonstrate, he flagged down the first car that came by. Unfortunately, that car contained 2 other undercover officers who were bringing our narcotics officer lunch. Now, everyone in the picture is a cop, except the guy leaning in the window in the white shorts.
Give me the money, man. All right, let me tell you something, all right? You ready, Barbara? You're under arrest. Hey, I ain't got no dope. I know y'all with the law. Yeah, I know you.
And we were just all in a state of shock. Couldn't believe that this guy was that stupid to not only sell to 2 undercover cops, but get the cocaine from an undercover cop, which in return he sold us. And as we get out of the car, he just sat there, and he just said, "I can't believe I did this." And he went to jail for possession of cocaine, the sale and delivery of cocaine.
And now, inside the courtroom for trial and error. An officer tells on the stand how 2 dumb criminals had their number come up.
Officer Word, what did you find at the scene of the crime?
Well, we discovered a cash machine with a chain attached to it and a loose bumper. The chain was fastened to a loose bumper that was just lying in the road.
Well, with only a chain attached to a cash machine and the chain fastened to a broken bumper, how could you suspect my clients?
Well, the bumper still had their license plate on it.
In Kentucky, it used to be against the law for a boy to ask a girl in a bikini on a date. But you could propose marriage to a giant girl in a bonnet.
Now, we've all heard the saying, there's never a cop around when you need one. Well, we're finding out that for the criminal, at least, there's always a cop around when you don't want one. Here is, don't call the police.
Well, this one is about a break-in at my house. I used to work 11 to 7 shift, and I had been to court most of all that morning when I got off work from 11 to 7 shift. And I got home about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so I went to bed. And I was awakened by a crash at the window. Somebody had thrown a brick through the window. So I jumped up, put on my clothes, started looking around the house from the inside, but I didn't turn on any lights. And I could see this guy on the side of my house, you know, and it looked like he was gonna come in. So I was just in the hallway with my gun, and I had radioed for some officers to come and give me some assistance. And he came into the house. And when he came in with his head down, and by the time he looked up, I had my gun in his face, and I turned the light on. And he started begging for his life.
Please don't call the police. Please don't call the police. Please?
Please don't call the police. And I said to him, I said, "Fool, look around. I am the police." So, you know, not only did he get a house where he thought nobody was home, but he got a house where somebody was home and it was the police. So I thought that was a pretty dumb story.
Coming up on America's Dumbest Criminals, a dealer who would like to be formally introduced to his arresting officer. Officer Dimitri Cannon once told ADC that you might not think you're a dumb criminal, but drugs and alcohol can make you as dumb as you want to be. Here's proof, about 90 proof.
You ever see Otis Campbell and Andy Griffith? The guy looked like that to start with. He's got, you know, thin and gray hair, kind of heavy set, round face. And I get a call. It's a Royal Go-Go. It's a bar here, and it sits right next to the interstate. But you can't just go from the club to the interstate because there's like a 8-foot drop, maybe a 5-foot drop off the parking lot before you get to the interstates. But drunks always want to drive off straight to the interstate because it's right there at the on-ramp. Well, I get there, and there's a car, front tires off the ledge there. The back tires are smoking. And I walk up to the door, and he's in there driving, just looking like he's waiting to get to the interstate, like he just thinks he's driving. So I knock on his window, and he looks at me, and like he's surprised I'm keeping up with him without a car or something. It's really funny. I get him out of the car, and of course he's drunk, he's wet on himself, and he's staggering, look just like Otis Campbell.
Was that speeding, officer?
Probably.
The driver was arrested for DUI and could have been issued a DAI, driving above the interstate. In Atlantic City, it used to be against the law to dunk your donuts with your fingers. And thus was born the donut on a string. And now, the story of a dumb criminal who was guilty of everything but being tardy.
It's about 9 o'clock at night. Just running radar, 35-mile-an-hour zone. This lady comes around the curve doing 52 miles an hour in a brand new Mercedes. Clocked her in, locked it in. Turned on my blue lights before she even got up to the car. She went ahead and pulled over, and I swung in behind her. Walked up to the car. "Ma'am, may I see your driver's license?" "Yes, officer." Handed me her driver's license. She said, "Officer, I got one question." I said, "What's that?" She said, "How long have you been sitting there waiting to pull somebody over?" I said, "About 3 minutes." She said, "Well, I got here as fast as I could."
It should be obvious by now that a lot of policemen and women have a good sense of humor. The driver was let off with a warning.
In Missouri, it used to be against the law to drive with an uncaged bear, but it was legal to roll an elephant down the road sideways. And now, let's go to Knoxville, Tennessee, where Foster Arnett is about to tell us of a brainless bank robber who thought he saw a window of opportunity.
Where we got a call of an armed robbery in progress. And when we got there, the tellers and the people inside the bank were rather hysterical, laughing. And the officer asked what was so funny. And the story goes that this suspect pulled into the drive-up teller window. He gets out of his car, pulls a gun, and tells the teller that he wants all the money, and she just started laughing at him.
Give me your money. Give me all your money right now in there. Come on. Give me your money. Now. Money. What are you laughing at? What? What?
There's nothing you can do.
And he cursed and just turned around and walked off.
This dumb criminal's attempted withdrawal led to his early deposit in jail. And now, actual surveillance cam footage of a dumb criminal we call the Panty Plucker. Vicki Vance noticed undergarments missing every wash day from her line, so Vicki Vance set up her own clothesline surveillance cam. That night, Vicki Vance was vexed when she viewed the video. There was transient truck driver Peter Piedmont plucking panties big as day. Peter plucked a plethora of panties, but then he panicked. Now, Peter is paying for his panty plucking in the pen. Now, a case we call, "Hi, my name is Steve. I'll be your dealer today."
I went to this bar here in town, which is a bar that it's just known for people that hang out in the bar involved in illegal drugs. And I went to this bar one day, and I was actually looking for a particular person. Meanwhile, this other guy is standing there, and I start talking to him, and we talked for probably 30 minutes. And I said, it was getting late, and I was fixing to want to leave and go home. So I said, I'll just take a shot in the dark. And I asked him, I said,
You know where I get any reefer, do you?
He sat there and he says, as a matter of fact, I do. Now, the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, how am I going to find out who this guy is? Because if I arrest him on the spot, then everybody else in there is going to be aware that I am a police officer. And that hinders me for the next time I go in this bar. So we go out, and I'm still worried, how am I going to identify this guy? But right before he pulled a bag of pot out of his pocket, and right before he sold it to me, he said,
Yeah, I know you could be a cop for all I know. You got any ID on you?
Yeah, sure. No, I don't know you either. I mean, maybe I should see some ID.
That's cool.
And he opens up his wallet and hands me his driver's license, and I memorized his name, his date of birth, and his home address off of his driver's license. So we made the sale, he left, and I wrote it down, and I got a warrant for him and picked him up at his house a week later.
Now, a stick-up man who doesn't stick around long. This is actual surveillance cam footage of a man entering a store who pulls out a rifle from under his jacket. He demands the money, and as the clerk opens the drawer, our dumb criminal goes to pick the pocket of the elderly gentleman. But watch what he does with the gun. He's laid it down on the counter. What was this dumb criminal thinking? Can I just set this here while I pick the old guy's pocket? And what was the old man thinking? If he were 20 years younger, he'd grab that gun. And the clerk was thinking, gosh, I am 20 years younger. I can grab that gun. So he does. Now, watch what happens when the clerk tries to return the man's gun. Sir? Sir, I believe this is yours. Do you recognize the bullets? The largest jailbreak in history occurred in Tehran, Iran, when retired Colonel Arthur Bull Simmons led a band of 14 to free 2 imprisoned Americans. 11,000 other prisoners took advantage of the break. Unfortunately, the escape route went right through the city's open sewer. You've heard the rhetorical question, why do you think they call it dope? Well, here's why.
We were working a reverse sting one time with another city. We had a drug task force doing street-level narcotics enforcement, and we put police officers out on the street posing as crack dealers. Business was so good, we had about 10, 12 guys in this little room that needed to be transported over to the jail. So we had this sergeant come over in a van that had police written all over it. We were kind of taking a break. And so he gets out, and he has on a black T-shirt with big block letters, says police all over it, and his gun belt, and, you know, obviously a police officer in a police van. And he went inside, and he was leading this big pack of people, all in handcuffs and shackles, back out to the van, and a guy walked up and tried to buy crack from him. Like, right there. with a van and like 12 prisoners and this sergeant with police written all over it on his T-shirt. So that was definitely the dumbest criminal I've ever seen in my life.
I'd like to take a moment to thank the law enforcement officers of the world who have such a hard time keeping a straight face. Our thanks to those brave officers and to you for watching. I'm Daniel Butler saying, don't be dumb. Don't break the law.